Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very excited to welcome Matt Duffy to the podcast today to talk about kind of an obscure film from 1972, but it was a big critical darling. It got an Oscar nomination. We're talking about Fat City from July of 1972, starring Stacy Keach, Jeff Bridges, and Susan Tyrrell in an Oscar-nominated performance. How are we doing, Matt?
I'm well, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for coming on today. We had a great conversation a fefew months ago about The Other. So I feel like I'm bringing you on for 1972 movies that no one's ever heard of.
This one's a step up.
This one's a bit of a step up. I feel like if 3 people know about The Other, 7 know about Fat City. Had you heard of this movie before I reached out to you?
Only because of Susan Tyrrell's Oscar nomination. That's all I knew.
Okay. So you had studied the 73 Oscars for the films of 72?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had heard the title, heard the name. Did you know anything about her, the actress, or anything about the film? No?
I knew nothing. Nothing about the film, nothing about her. Just that she lost to Eileen Heckert in Butterflies Are Free.
It's really strange because we just recorded the Butterflies Are Free episode, and that is dropping a week before this one. I
love it.
So we're recording this in mid-June, a little bit later in June. This will be the second episode in a row talking about a Best Supporting Actress nominee. I guess this one was a nominee, and Heckert was the winner. It's funny. I try not to read up on this stuff, but I sat down for Butterflies Are Free, knowing she won. So I'm really studying her performance. I'm okay, what's what are you gonna bring here, Eileen? You know, and she's great in the film. She's really good. And of course, when I put on Fat City, the reason I chose to do this really in a summer of, some movies that might be a little bit more well known for the audience, I feel like any movie that has an Oscar nomination for any of the actors is worth doing for this podcast. Sometimes I don't get to all of them. Last year, I think there were 2 I never got to. One was The Go-Between, which I watched, and it was so bored I turned off. I said, I can't do this one. That got one. And then there was a Dustin Hoffman movie that, Who is Harry Kellerman? It's this long title.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that one, yeah.
And that got a supporting actress nomination. I think every other acting nominee, we talked about last year. But then, of course, at the end of the year, I always do a final, a season finale episode where we break down all the major categories of the Oscars. So if we don't get to one of the movies nominated, we will talk about them eventually.
Yeah.
So Fat City, this is July of 72. This is John Huston, which I did not know directed it until I started watching it. I had read up a little bit about the movie. I knew it was Jeff Bridges and Stacy Keach. I did not realize it was John Huston until it started.
I had no clue. And that actually was another reason I was looking forward to watching it, because I actually like his movies.
Okay.
So I was okay, cool. John Huston, awesome. Let's get into this.
I mean, this is John Huston, the figure behind The Maltese Falcon, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. And he's a great actor. He's an actor in, African Queen. He directed
Chinatown.
He's an actor in Chinatown. And he's great in that. And his work went from the 40s to the 80s. He was directing films, I think, right before his death. He directed Prizzi's Honor with Jack Nicholson, and Angelica Houston won the Oscar for supporting actress. And then I think he was close to death when he was filming a movie called The Dead with Angelica Houston, which came out in 87.
The Joyce novel, right?
Yeah, which I remember when I was in high school, when I was
we read it in high school. Yep.
Yeah. And then I was when I was younger, I'd read up on all the history of directors and stuff, and I'm wait,
love it.
So his last movie is called The Dead? That's weird. And so he was really prolific, working all the time, has, dozen plus great credits on his resume. Had not heard of this one. When I pull him up on IMDb, he has over 50 acting credits. Not everyone thinks of John Huston as an actor in a lot, but he was in a lot of things. He has more acting credits than he does directing credits. Directing as under 50, about 47.
Wow. Very interesting.
It takes longer to direct a movie, so
fair point.
So doing my research about Fat City, they were saying like the movies he was making before this were not doing well critically, kind of bombing at the box office. Pulling up his list here, his films before this were The Kremlin Letter in 70, A Walk with Love and Death in 69, Sinful Davy, Reflections in a Golden Eye. I've actually seen that one. That's Marlon Brando.
I've heard
and
of it.
Taylor.
Yes.
Yeah, so that one I'm familiar with. I started my podcast talking about films of 1970. I don't even know what The Kremlin Letter is.
Oh my God.
I feel like I might have mentioned it in my first episode, which was just me by myself, which was very strange. Maybe.
I'm sure it just has to do with, this is that period where old Hollywood is like fading, new Hollywood's coming in. So I guess all those films just didn't have the critical or audience response that he was eliciting because he's from that older generation. That's all I can think of. Because really, I really enjoy a lot of his work, even the ones that are kind of like not his best. But, I think it just speaks to the times. And this movie definitely speaks to the times.
So this is kind of a return to form. And then he would do some even bigger films. Like we're just a few years away from The Man Who Would Be King with Sean Connery, which was a big film of the mid 70s. And I forgot he also directed Annie.
Oh my God. I love that. I used to love that movie growing up. I always forget that too.
That's really random that John Huston directed Annie. But so I don't know, when I think of John Huston, I mean, I think of film noir, of his early work, and I don't often think of John Huston as a director. Not that I've seen a ton of his movies. I've seen a few of them. I've never really thought of him as a very like thoughtful, like quiet director where not a lot happens. There's no spectacle. It's just characters in bars and rooms talking. That's really what Fat City is. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%.
Like I read up that it was a boxing movie and I'm like, okay, so it'll be about like two boxers like butting heads, like maybe their big competition.
I was expecting a little more rivalry between the two guys, kind of a little more action, like a pre-Rocky kind of like feel.
Yeah, I mean, this is 4 years before Rocky.
Yeah.
This is 2 years after Five Easy Pieces, which Fat City kind of reminded me of. Five Easy Pieces is my favorite movie of 1970. Okay. Like the best movie of 1970, I think. I just love everything about that. And watching Fat City, which I think is a much lesser film than that, I was like kind of recognizing like that kind of quiet, kind of, there's not a whole lot at stake. It's more about character.
Oh, I'm so glad you said it. I was going to bring it up, but now that you said it, the ending in this movie reminded me of the ending in Five
Easy Pieces. Yeah, kind of open-ended at the end of Fat City. There's probably my favorite scene in Fat City is all about food at the dinner table. I thought I like we'll get into it, but I thought that was the best scene. But before we get into all of our thoughts in the movie, I thought I'd give a little bit of background on it for our listeners who might not know what it's about. So it's about two men working as professional boxers who come to blows when their careers each begin to take opposite momentum. So Stacy Keach is the older boxer, and then Jeff Bridges is the younger boxer. What is it? So Jeff Bridges is playing 18 years old in this. And then at one point, Stacy Keach, doesn't he say something like, I'm almost 30?
I'm 4 months away from being 30.
And I'm like, I thought he was like 30. I thought he was like 45.
I was going to say 40, like 50. I was like, Jesus.
Stacy Keach with his hair and just like,
he was just a hard 29. I'll tell you that.
He looks weathered. And I'm like, sometimes I look in the mirror and I think, man, I could look a little younger. And I'm like, well, at least I don't look like Stacy Keach at 29 in Fat City.
God.
But so yeah, what's weird about this movie is that it's like it's got dual narratives. We get some stuff with Bridges, some stuff with Keach. And it's not like it's one of those movies where they're always kind of lined up with each other and they're both kind of working towards something. It's just kind of like at one point I wrote in my notes, like, I feel like I'm watching two different movies.
I felt the same way. It would talk about, they'd have a scene with Billy, Stacy Keach's character, and they'd go on, and I'd be like, well, where's Jeff Bridges? And then they'd cut to Jeff Bridges, like randomly, like, oh, a couple months later, he's just with his girlfriend. I'm like, what happened in between? Like, where's the relationship between these two? I want to see more of them interacting.
Yeah, when they're on screen together, I think the movie works better.
It's great.
Like they have an
100%.
easy chemistry. Like they're enemies, but not really, and they get along, but they're also
and there's this
combative.
kind of camaraderie they have that really like lights up when they're on screen.
Yeah. So I felt, for that reason, I felt like the second half of the movie works better. I felt like there was a stretch here where I'm just like, what is happening? Why do I care?
Yes, it's very back and forth. And I'm like, but I don't want that. I just want one linear line going start, middle, end.
Yeah. So I guess we can blame the novelist for that. I don't know. This movie's based on the 1969 novel by Leonard Gardner. He also wrote the screenplay. I looked him up on IMDb. This is like one of 2 feature film credits, and then everything else is NYPD Blue from the 90s.
Oh, well,
it's like he wrote like 2 scripts in the 70s, and then he was like a producer and a writer for NYPD Blue 20 years later. I'm like, okay.
Oh, wow. Must be nice.
So he got an Emmy nomination for that. I did want to know, why is this movie called Fat City?
Yeah.
And there was an interview I found online with Gardner. He explained the meaning of the title. Lots of people have asked me about the title. It's part of African-American slang. When you say you want to go to Fat City, it means you want the good life. I got the idea for the title after seeing a photograph of a tenement in an exhibit in San Francisco. Fat City was scrawled in chalk on the wall. The title is ironic. Fat City is a crazy goal no one is ever going to reach. Okay.
Wow. I think
go for it.
It speaks to the film. I agree with that, in that this is a story about people who will try their hardest to succeed, but will never live up to that potential, whatever it is. And it's sad to watch, but it's very compelling. And when you read that, what you just read, it almost puts everything kind of together.
So yeah, I get this, the sentiment behind it. I understand what he's going for, but I still think for the average viewer, that's not going to come across when they see the marquee.
Absolutely not.
They're like, what? I don't know. I was just like, all summer, I was like, Fat City. Like weeks before, I was like, why is this boxing movie called Fat City? Couldn't figure it out while watching it.
I was expecting like a road trip comedy, honestly, when I heard Fat City. But
yeah, I was
I'll take a boxing film.
I did not expect this like quiet character study. I was like, okay, interesting. So this I found interesting. Director John Huston wanted Brando to play the Stacy Keach role.
I saw that.
Marlon Brando. So this is 1972. This is the year of The Godfather and Last Tango in Paris, 2 of his most famous movies.
Wow.
So I don't know. It sounds like they were in talks. It wasn't like Brando said no. He was apparently kind of busy at this point.
Considered, yeah.
But enough time passed that Huston finally said, you know what? I don't think Brando's going to do it. So he looked for another actor, and he went with a relatively unknown Keach, an actor who he's kind of like an under the radar actor. Stacy Keach, I would say. It's not someone most people know unless you're like a really big fan of like genre films and things, but he's been a working actor for decades and does great work.
I only knew Stacy Keach because my dad was a huge fan of 2.5 Men.
Oh,
and he had like a huge long guest stint on it.
I was thinking a lot about his appearance in a John Carpenter movie from 1993 called Body Bags, where Stacy Keach plays this guy whose hair is falling out, and he wants a full head of hair. He'll do anything. It's like Ariel and Little Mermaid. Like she'll do anything to be able to walk.
Oh my!
It's like Stacy, and then so he makes a deal with the devil basically to get a nice full head of hair. But then he gets the hair, but then the rest of his body starts falling apart.
Interesting.
It's like, but he's got the hair. And I kept thinking about that movie watching this because his hairline is just outrageous.
Oh my God.
He's got like the big bald spot, and then the hair is kind of like going over the forehead and stuff. And when he's boxing, it's just a like, this to me was such a like 70s choice for the lead of a movie. Like you wouldn't see that today. You wouldn't have seen it in the 60s. Like this is very 72. This unknown actor, nobody knows him.
100% agree.
His hair, I'm like, and he's just such a great, specific looking actor. And Stacy Keach is so talented. I was really excited to see him in this.
I agree.
Now, Huston also wanted Beau Bridges to play Ernie, but Beau felt he was too old, so he recommended to Huston to use his brother Jeff.
Oh wow, interesting. I didn't
Which
know that part.
I think was a good choice. I
I
think
think
Beau
so
Bridges
too.
would have been too old to play 18.
Yeah.
I saw him in a 1970 movie called The Landlord, the first movie by Hal Ashby, and
Yeah.
Beau Bridges looks pretty young in that, but that would have been 2 years before. This is Jeff Bridges right after Last Picture Show, so I'm
Yes.
assuming he shot Fat City probably soon thereafter,
Yeah.
and he got an Oscar nomination for Last Picture Show's
Yep.
first of how many now? 6, 7?
I believe, yeah, 6 or
I think it's
7. Yeah,
7.
6. Sit. Yeah. All right.
Isn't it? I
I'll
think
take your
because
word on it.
yeah, let's see if I can do it. Ready? Okay, I think it's Last Picture
Last
Show,
Picture Show.
Thunderfoot, no, Thunderball and
Thunderbolt
Lightfoot,
and Lightfoot.
Thunderbolt and Lightfoot,
Lightfoot.
Starman, the one everyone
Starman.
forgets, like a kind of a random nomination there. The Contender,
Yeah.
Crazy Hearts, True
Crazy
Grit,
Heart, True Grit,
Hell or High Water.
and then Hell or High Water.
7.
You're right. I completely forgot about that one.
I have a YouTube channel where I talk Oscars. I got to know this stuff.
I know, right?
It makes the researching easier when you just know it already.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that would have helped him get this part, because the Oscar nomination for Last Picture Show would have been after he had shot Fat City.
Yeah.
But he for me is just one of the great. I've always really loved Jeff Bridges. He is so handsome in this movie. It's outrageous. And I was just like, I'm like, okay, so we're getting young Jeff Bridges in color.
Yes.
After Last Picture Show. And I was kind of I wanted them to do more with his role. I don't know if you felt that.
I agree 100%. I literally, in my notes, I have the first thing is Bridges is great. I wish I had more of him in the film.
There's I want to say there's a chunk of this movie in the second half for 20 minutes, maybe more, where he's not in it at all.
He's not in it at all. And I'm like, what happened to him?
He was the co-lead of this story for the first hour, and he's just gone.
I was like, where is he? I wanted to know more about his story. And I just felt like after that first boxing match, all of a sudden they kind of let him go. And it was more about Stacy Keach. I'm like, I want to know what happened to Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
I want to see him succeed. I want to see him rise up the ranks. But I was like, oh.
Often I talk about how movies should be shorter. This one's 95 minutes. And I was like, I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not to say I wanted this to be 2.5 hours, because that could have been deadly. But especially with the Jeff Bridges character, I was just like, feel like there's something lacking there. Like his scenes with his girlfriend or wife don't crackle with the same kind of entertainment and intensity that we get with Stacy Keach,
and that's what we
Susan Tyrrell.
Yeah, it was every time they would cut back to Jeff Bridges, it's a scene with him and Faye, right? It's Candy Clark. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, well, here we go. Another scene with Faye. It's like, but that part's not interesting. That's not the interesting part about his character. So I was like, why are we focusing on this when we could actually be using his maximum potential and just seeing him as a boxer, seeing him with the other guys? But I digress.
I struggled because I didn't want just a formulaic boxing movie. If this had just been a 90-minute, two guys both want the crown and they're training together and they go head to head in the last one, that would have been predictable. Would have been whatever.
Yes.
But I also think there is something to be said about a movie that really just meanders, that this is not going anywhere. And I'm like, what? I think I wrote down in my notes 3 times. I'm like, where is this going?
Yeah.
So that was, and it's, I guess you could argue, you could ask that about 5 Easy Pieces, but there's something about that movie that there's this haunting, melodic quality to its pacing, to the Jack Nicholson performance, even though there's not there. I feel like there is more of a destination in 5 Easy Pieces, him going back home. And that's a whole separate movie, the second half where he goes home.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's more texture. There's more going on in 5 Easy Pieces.
There's a little more oomph in 5 Easy Pieces.
And just one great dialogue scene after another. There's never a scene where you're just like, okay, get on with it. And
in here, I feel like in this movie, it's more about the silences and the kind of shots of just characters. It's not so much the dialogue. And that's great. but sometimes you need a little pizzazz with the words.
I also think Fat City,
going.
yeah, I think Fat City for me would have worked better if it focused on one or the other. Like, because I feel like it goes back and forth too much. And since Jeff Bridges isn't in a lot of the second hour, I'm like, why isn't this just about Stacy Keach? Or why don't we just tell Jeff Bridges' story? Like, it's hard to balance the two.
If you're gonna have co-leads, use them right. Otherwise, it's just like a lead and then this kind of vague line for the other one that's lead or supporting, kind of like what we see now in a lot of films. But I think that's a whole different story. That's an awards thing, but not in this case.
Oh, right. Like when someone is in every scene and then they get a best supporting actor.
Exactly. Rooney Mara and Carol. What?
Yeah. Jamie Foxx and Collateral.
Exactly. But not in this case.
But I was like thinking about like, what if Five Easy Pieces? What if Nicholson was only in half the movie, and the other half was about some guy he was working with at the beginning, and we followed him? Like, wouldn't be as good.
It's incomplete. It seems,
Like, and I feel like the Jeff Bridges movie would have been a little bit more formulaic, whereas the Stacy Keach story has a little bit more interesting flavor to me, especially with his relationship with the Susan Tyrrell character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just at 90 minutes, I'm just like, I don't know. And then the movie's ending, and I look up the reviews, and like through the roof. Like, people were just raving about this movie. I couldn't believe it.
When I read those reviews, I was like, were we watching the same film? 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, what?
So it did well at the box office. Tremendous praise from all the major outlets. Roger Ebert said, Huston treats the story with a level, unsentimental honesty, makes it into one of his very best films, and the movie's edges are filled with small, perfect character performances. Okay, that's a bit high for me. Yeah. I don't know, like, a movie can be quiet and thought-provoking and just be filled with scenes of dialogue. And I mean, the Before trilogy is 3 of my favorite movies ever, especially the 2 and 3. I'm all for movies where people talk. That's fine. But like for example, there's a scene where Jeff Bridges is boxing, and it's like a kind of intense scene. We're following his character for a few minutes, and then it cuts to Stacy Keach and Susan Tyrrell at the bar, and they talk for like 7 minutes. And I'm like, what does this have to do with the previous scene?
Nothing.
Like,
although I did like that scene.
It just, like, the balance was off. I'm just like, like, Jeff Bridges needs to come into the bar or like something. I'm like, this is just very strange. Like the cutting back and forth here.
I was looking at the reviews as well. I really liked Pauline Kael's.
Okay.
And just to quote hers, it was a good, and that's why I pulled it. The film is beautifully acted and directed around the edges, but it also suffers from a tragic tone that has a blurring, antiquing effect. You watch all these losers losing, and you don't know why they're losing or why you're watching them.
Yeah.
And I felt that.
Yeah. And I'm all for movies about losers. That's fine.
Yes.
I'm all for movies that don't really have a very clear ending of what's going to happen next.
But you got to have something with it. Like, it's got to be, I don't know.
I've had people in my life who's like, if the movie doesn't give me an answer at the end, I get very upset. And I'm the opposite. I'm I'm all good.
Listen, Mad Men was my favorite show, and that show made me think so much.
I'm like, to that person, I was like, man, I hope you didn't watch The Sopranos.
Oh, God.
Talk about open-ended. But so yeah, the last piece of trivia to share is that this movie did get 1 Oscar nomination. Susan Tyrrell received her one and only Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. She lost to Eileen Heckert for Butterflies Are Free, which we at this point would have just talked about last week, which is really funny. I have my trusty my book here. I've had this book since I was in high school, and it's like a flimsy little paperback. I'm like shocked that I never lost it along the way. All the moves I've done. I lived in LA for a while. I went to Germany for 6 months. I'm like, how did I never lose it? Maybe I didn't bring it to Germany. Maybe that was
maybe.
So the other 3 nominees were Shelley Winters for The Poseidon Adventure,
who won the Globe, if I'm correct.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. I think I've seen a little bit of The Poseidon Adventure, but I've never watched it in full. I'm excited to watch that later this year. Geraldine Page for Pete and Tilly which is I'm scheduled to talk about in November. I know nothing about that movie, but I love Geraldine Payne.
Yeah.
And then Jeannie Berlin for The Heartbreak Kid by Elaine May, which I've had a few guests tell me that's a great movie. Like get ready, be excited. It's like an end of the year romantic comedy with Charles Grodin.
Yes, that's right.
And it's written and directed by Elaine May, who just made A New Leaf. So I'm excited for that. That'll be in December. The Heartbreak Kid. So it's like it's a weird category this year. There's not like a clear front runner. There's not like one. It's not like someone from Cabaret or The Godfather.
I was gonna say, like, I'm curious because if that's the 5, like, where did Marissa Berenson in Cabaret fall? Where did Diane Keaton in The Godfather fall? So it's an interesting 5. I'm curious to hear your thoughts at the end of the year. Who you think should have won and whatnot.
Well, what boggles my mind is that The Godfather gets 3 supporting actor nominations, but Talia Shire and Diane Keaton, who are both great in The Godfather, are overlooked. What's that about?
No clue.
Like, Diane Keaton, I guess, makes sense because she gives kind of a quiet performance in The Godfather.
She's new.
Yeah.
Talia
Shire has scene.
That's
where
right.
she's breaking the
glass
plates and she's screaming. Remember? And Coppola does that long, like it's like one long take. Like, how did that not get nominated?
I don't know.
But yeah, so what did we think of Susan Tyrrell in this film?
So I actually liked her in the film. I just, from the moment she walks in the door of the bar, she's got this like gaudy outfit on. She has like the clips and the bows in her hair. She's like, tapping her sunglasses to get the bartender's attention. It was like, I knew right when she walked, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. And she's a lush, and she really is the true epitome of this like heart of gold, like drunk.
Oh yeah.
And I was expecting her to be like the comic relief of the film, and she is to a degree, but she has such heart, really, underneath everything. She means well, and she reminds me of those, the small town community people you see, and you just know who they are, and you know that you've got a sense of what's the word? Kinship with them. Regardless if you don't know them or anything, you see them around, but like that's a good guy right there.
I didn't know what to expect because the one major film role of hers I was very, very familiar with from since I was a kid. Have you seen Cry Baby by John Water?
Oh, years ago. She's in that.
She plays Ramona, and she's like the mom. She's like the mom in Cry Baby, and just a wild, eccentric performance that just like like 1 to 10, doing an 11 in the back, and just like amazing performance in that. And I'm like, okay, this is her Oscar nominated role. Like, she's probably going to come into the movie and just steal it away. And I was actually really surprised, and I love that it was kind of an understated performance. It wasn't as big and crazy as I thought. I thought she was going to come in and just be, the wild supporting character who takes the movie away with her, and that's not the case at all.
Doesn't.
I mean, she's definitely got a little bit more pizzazz personality than anyone else in the movie, for sure, just 100%. Based on her look and her voice and how she carries herself. But she also, you're right, she shows humanity. My favorite scene in the movie is that dinner scene where he's made her dinner and she's like screaming at him from the bed, and then finally she agrees to eat with him, but then she like throws the plate, and it's just like one thing after another for like 5 minutes. I thought that scene worked well. Again, I did write down, I'm like, I don't know where this fits in the narrative, but I like it.
No, I felt the same way. So my favorite scene was the second bar scene with Billy and Oma, and it's because it's just a conversation, and they really just let it all out. And he's like, it's that scene where he's like, I'm so mad I feel like I could just bust my head on the jukebox. She's like, what are you gonna do it? And then at the end, they're stumbling out of the bar, and she's just like, you're gonna take care of me? And he's like, I'm gonna take care of you. And it really was just this kind of coalescence of these two lost souls that I just loved to see.
Yeah, I really like their dynamic relationship. I was a
Yes,
little disappointed by the outcome of her character. She kind of disappears for the last half hour.
she does. Yeah,
And we see her briefly when he goes to that house, and she's just like, she says two things to him, and she's with,
yeah,
you're supposed to think she's with this other guy at the end, right?
yeah. And he's back from prison. And but it's funny. I actually like that scene
Okay.
between her boyfriend and him,
Yeah.
where it's kind of this like man to man kind of talk. And it kind of symbolizes this, like, no matter how many steps people in Fat City go forward, you're always going to go one step back.
Yeah. But I don't know. I felt like the movie could have done a little bit more with her. Like I
Oh, I
was
agree.
wondering, like maybe she'll show up to Stacy Keach's boxing match. Like maybe she'll like show up and support him or something. Like it just felt weird to. I mean, what is it? 30, 40 minutes of the movie is dedicated to this relationship, and then she's just like gone for the last half hour. Then we see her briefly. Totally. I'm like, for an Oscar-nominated role, I'm just like, could have been.
It ends on a weird note because she kind of just ditches him, and it's like,
yeah.
Well, then why are we spending so much time with her in the middle of the movie?
Yeah, I mean,
just for her to cast him aside, like the shirt that he throws in the middle of the film on the floor. It's like I don't know.
It doesn't have to be formulaic. She confesses her love for him in the last scene, kind of a thing at the boxing match. Yeah. I don't need that, but I'm just
we don't. It wouldn't make sense for her character either.
That would have been too much. But I did, while watching this, I'm like, a different screenwriter, a different director could have taken this in 10 different directions, and definitely could have made it just this total formula movie.
Oh yeah.
I think what hits a better note for a boxing movie that has more elements of formula, but is doing more with the characters and is of more interest to me, is The Great White Hope from 1970, starring James Earl Jones, who got an Oscar nomination. I thought that movie, I don't know, have you seen that one?
I have not. I just heard about it because I know he got the Oscar nomination.
That was I believe that was my 5th episode of the podcast, like back in October or September of 2020. It was like one of the first ones I watched, and it was a boxing film. It was a period movie. It was set in like the 20s or somewhere around there. I felt like that was a little bit more immersive of a film. And what's hard is watching Fat City, the boxing scenes. I don't know if you thought about this, but every time I watch a boxing scene in a movie, I think about the holy grail of Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull, and the look and the photography and the editing of that movie is so spectacular that it's hard to watch any other boxing movie, whether it's made today or made 50 years ago. And I thought John Huston did a fine job with the boxing scenes, but there's nothing that immerses you the way that Raging Bull does.
And I think maybe that's the point of the film, is that nothing is supposed to wow us, because these people are nobody special. They may win a competition and then the next day they lose. It's like I think from what I saw, I was like you, I wasn't really amazed with the boxing scenes, but I think it just symbolizes this kind of second chance American dream kind of look, where like they'll keep going, but they'll never hit that peak. Yeah,
and you're right. I mean, I don't think it would have worked if like John Huston had suddenly gotten like really inventive with the cinematography.
I would have liked it for that last scene. That last scene with Stacy Keach, I would have loved if it was a little more like stylized, but
I'm like, does the movie want us to root for either of these guys in their matches? Like, I don't even know.
That's the other thing. Yeah, like I agree. I want to root for them, but it doesn't. I feel like I'm almost like the outcast if I want to root for them.
Yeah,
because they're almost set up to lose.
Yeah, you just don't get the sense that things are going to end well for the Stacy Keach character, and I'm just like, I don't think I'm supposed to be like rooting him on here from where I'm watching.
Even Jeff Bridges too. It's like you want to root for him, but it's like he keeps getting knocked out. It's like, oh well, I'm not going to keep rooting for him if you're going to keep making him lose. It's like he's what a waste.
That's a good moment. Doesn't he get like he gets a hit to the nose and it's just like blood all over his face?
20 seconds in. Whatever.
Yeah. So I was like, I feel like the boxing is just a side of this movie. It's like not the main focus. It's more about these guys and their
living their lives
that aren't going the direction they want. I don't know. And that's fine. A movie can be about that. It doesn't have to be about the final big showdown boxing match. But
yeah,
when this movie ended, my hand kind of closed on air a little bit. I was just like, what am I supposed to take away from this movie? So you like the last scene? The last scene was okay. It was just like, I like that we ended with both of them.
Yeah,
that's like the diner.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's like a flash forward. Stacy Keach he's a bum basically still, and it almost seems like Jeff Bridges has his life together,
right?
Kind of, but because as soon as he sees Stacy Keach, he's like, oh no, like get me away from him. You can see that their relationship, he sees that could be his future, and it's like I don't want to be that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get in that coffee shop and, life just hits them both in the eye.
Doesn't Stacy Keach say to him, like, don't go yet, stay.
Yeah.
Let's keep talking.
And then it's just silence.
Which shows that he's lonely and he has this semi friend. He wants a friend. And then they don't say anything. And then the credits come up like over the shot of them just sitting there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is what audiences were going for 50 years ago. Can you imagine this playing for an audience today in a theater?
Yeah, I don't know how audiences would think about it, honestly. I mean, I feel like if it was like an indie film, it could like work.
Yeah.
But like the indie crowd is not the boxing crowd. So I don't know how they would feel. So it's interesting. If it was more, like you said, if it was more about these two guys living their humdrum, like lowly lives, I feel like people could get around that. But like, if you're going to have the boxing, you got to incorporate it a little more. That's just my thought.
I can just picture like a bunch of young males going into this thinking it's a boxing movie.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go see Fat City. Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Fat City Friday. Yeah. Guys, I don't know if I like this. It's like people who went to see $1 Million Baby for the boxing, like got a whole different third act than they expected.
No way. God. Oh my God.
So any other scenes? I like that scene in the car where Stacy Keach's character learns that he only made $100 from that match.
Yes.
And he like storms out into the traffic screaming. I like that part too.
I like that. I really did, because that almost kind of put everything in perspective, where he's like, I'm working my ass off and I'm only getting $100.
Yeah.
It almost was like, is this life worth it? Is this goal I've been trying to achieve for so long, and this is the payout? Yeah.
I could really like I could side with him there and understand his pain.
Yeah.
I feel like creatives, like we go through that all the time,
Yeah.
You work really hard on something for a year and then like a short story, and then it sells and for $50 and $50, all of that for $50.
And it was almost like, in like an external kind of way, it's kind of like he's pondering his life, is my life worth this?
Yeah.
And then he literally goes out into like moving traffic to like run into the street. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. And he's not really looking. He's not really like turning to his left or something.
No, he just like, it was almost like a suicide watch almost. He's like, I don't care what happens to me now. This is my life. I don't know if I can live. And then the coach, Ruben, who I thought I knew the coach from somewhere.
Yeah.
And
he's
I looked it up.
Did you look up
from Cheers?
Cheers. He was in the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, because I watched the first couple of seasons. I'm like, this guy looks so familiar, and his voice.
So I've been watching slowly it was on Hulu. It just left Hulu. I think it's on Paramount Plus now, but I've been watching Cheers for the first time. I'd never seen it before, and it's really funny. I really enjoy it.
It's good. I started it a couple of years ago. I never finished it, but I really enjoyed it. It's a great written show, and Nicholas Colasanto's great.
Yeah. So he's great on the first 3 seasons of Cheers. I believe he passed away. Like
he died
before they had wrapped production of season 3. Yes. Like it happened very quickly, and he's not in the last few episodes. Like he shot an episode, like a week or 2 later, he was gone.
Died. And then Woody Harrelson comes in.
And then Woody Harrelson came in. So I just finished the last Shelley Long episode of season 5.
Okay.
And then
I think that's where I left off too.
We start the Kirstie Alley reign in a few weeks.
Oh gosh.
6 more seasons. I'm like, holy cow. But so it was cool to see him in something else in a film, and he was really great as the coach. He's like perfect for that kind of role, like mentor role.
100%.
So he was good. Yeah, I mean, the movie, it's not a waste of time by any means. It's great actors, great director. It's got a little bit more of that early 70s vibe. I've looked at a lot of 72 films that looked like they could have been filmed in 1965. Like this, like Fat City feels like a film from 72.
100%.
And I always give a movie props when it feels of its time for this podcast.
And it's a good running time as well.
Yes.
I thought 95 minutes was apropos.
Yeah. We just talked about a movie, Prime Cut. That episode will have aired 2 weeks ago. That movie, I believe, was 86 minutes. And it was really great. It was a good movie. And I was like, happy with this running.
Perfect.
Not every movie needs to be 2 hours.
Not every movie needs to be 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it is like nowadays, I feel like it's like at least put in an intermission so I can use the bathroom.
Yeah, I heard some people complaining that the new Thor movie, which will have come out by the time this drops, is less than 2 hours. And it's like, no, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I don't need it to be 3 hours.
I mean, this is going to air. I'm going to see Elvis tonight. That's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Is it? I knew it was over 2. It's 2:40.
2 hours and 40.
But it's Baz Luhrmann. I got to do it.
I know. I'll let you know how it is.
Oh my gosh. No, I promised my mom I would take her. She loves like musical biopics. So I'm like, I'm taking you to Elvis.
Yeah.
I did not know it was that long. Holy moly.
Oh, yeah.
Got to brace myself.
Yeah, don't get drinks beforehand.
Don't get drinks. Yeah. So yeah, any other, before we get to my last question about the movie, anything else you wanted to mention? Anything else about the performances? I mean, I'd have to see the other 3 nominated films for supporting actress to say, I think I liked Eileen Heckert a little bit more in Butterflies Are Free. She played more of her role was more integral to the narrative, and she's in a lot of the movie. Whereas Susan Tyrrell, in terms of like the last 30 minutes, I don't feel like the character amounts to a lot. I thought she added something to the film. I thought she was great, and I love her look and her personality. And I looked her up. She's in like over 70 projects. I'm like, how have I not seen? So she passed away in 2012. And she has how many credits here? She has 78 credits that go all the way to 2012 and go all the way back to 64. So she's in television and film from 64 to 2012. And all I really know her from besides this is Crybaby. So there's a lot to discover. I'm excited.
Interesting.
I'm hoping she's in some 70s movies. I'm assuming the Oscar nomination might have helped. Yep. So she's in 3 films in 74. She's in 3 or 4 films in 1977. So we'll get to more of Susan.
Oh, you'll get to
She's
her.
Great.
No, yeah, I liked her. I haven't seen Eileen Heckert in Butterflies Are Free, but I can imagine that was more of a better choice.
Yeah, she's like a very like overprotective mom.
Did she win the Tony for that too?
Oh man, what we talked about that. Did she she was up?
No,
I think she
was
lost,
nominated, but I
think she lost to Blythe Danner, who played the main female role, which is the Goldie Hawn part.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Goldie Hawn got a Golden Globe nomination. I talked about that on that episode too, of like Goldie Hawn probably was close to getting a Best Actress Oscar nomination for that role.
I'm sure that was a good year though.
Best Actress of 72 is pretty fantastic. I would say Hawn was probably in 6th or 7th place. I mean, she was pretty close.
Definitely. One thing I will say though, since we're talking kind of about awards, I thought this was interesting. I don't know if you read this about the New York Film Critics Circle vote.
No, was that about Stacy Keach? I looked it up and it went on for so long. I'm like, I'll
So I think it's interesting. I'll keep making it really quick. So, back in 72, the New York Film Critics Circle was probably one of the more prestige awards besides the Oscars. The Golden Globes really weren't that kind of thing yet. And so they work on a plurality, and Stacy Keach won. However, there was a portion of the voters who kind of, I guess, were kind of snobbish and didn't think he deserved to win because his plurality percentage was so low.
Oh, okay.
So they basically had made this rule change so that the winner would have to get a majority in subsequent voting because they do rounds.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so he lost the majority, and then Brando won. but then Brando couldn't get a majority in the next round, and so Laurence Olivier and Sleuth won.
Wow.
And it kind of ties in interesting. Yeah, it is a lot. I've read about it. It's like a whole day process. So it's fun, like when you're on the outside, like, oh, what's everyone voting for? Who won the first round? But like, I could just see being in that room for like 8 hours. Just
oh my God.
Like, that's a lot.
Just give it to the person who got the most votes. Make it easy.
Exactly. Whatever.
And yeah, I mean, it's like Oscar races like we've had in recent years, like when Frances McDormand won for Nomadland, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what was her percentage?
I'm very curious to know that percentage.
And it's not like, it's like if someone wins and they get like 87% of the vote, that's like a washout. We're done.
Oh yeah.
But when it's like neck and neck among 3-4 people, it's like, we'll never really know unless they magically one day release all the statistics, which could you imagine spending a day just reading like who got second place?
I'd read it. There's just honest and aside. There's 2 years in Best Actress. I would kill to know the percentage. I think you probably agree. 1950 Best Actress, Judy Holliday, Bette Davis, Gloria Swanson.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And 2002, which is Nicole Kidman, Renee Zellweger, Julianne Moore, Far From Heaven.
How close did Renee Zellweger come with Chicago?
I think she was very close.
We saw with the Barbara Streisand and Katharine Hepburn year that, I mean, it's high. Imagine if there was even one race in Oscars history where someone won by 1 vote.
I would love to know what year that is.
That we'll never know. So that's really interesting to me. I always wonder how close because she's my favorite. I always wonder how close Sandra Bullock came for Gravity. Like, was she close or was it just a completely like, was it Cate Blanchett like 89%? Like I always like wonder.
Personally, I think Cate Blanchett and Blue Jasmine's one of my favorite Best Actress winners. So I like to think it was a landslide, but Sandra Bullock probably was. Movie. I will say, I like Gravity. It
probably was because, especially since Sandra had just won a few years before, nobody felt like they owed her one. But I just really love her in that movie, and I'm always like, well, she didn't really win any major awards that season, but like, was she in second?
I could see her being second. Anyway,
so I don't know what place Susan Tyrrell would have been in here, but I think it's hard when a movie only gets 1 nomination, right?
Yeah.
I feel like do we see that as much nowadays where like an acting, like, well, yeah, we saw it with Kristen Stewart, with Spencer.
Yes.
When a movie is only nominated for the 1 acting category, I feel like it's really hard to win.
It's tough. But then again,
Julianne Moore did it for Still Alice.
Meryl Streep, Iron Lady, right?
Iron Lady got a nomination for makeup and won for makeup and hairstyling.
Right. I forgot about that.
Probably the most famous example of the last decade is Julianne Moore won Best Actress for Still Alice. That was the only nomination for that movie. And she just skated on through all the way to the end.
Well, that was one of those years.
Glenn Close, the only nomination for The Wife. But I'm like, if they're going to give it to Julianne Moore on her 5th nomination, they're going to give it to Glenn Close on her 7th.
Listen, I'm wearing black for a reason. I'm still not over it.
What makes that one so hard is that I love Olivia Colman. I love her work in The Favorite. It's a great win.
Yeah, she was good. It's a great win.
And so it's not like I'm raw about it, but I'm like, but.
And Glenn was wearing a gold dress too. I'm like, oh, to add insult to injury.
And it sounds like they're not making the Sunset Boulevard musical adaptation. They bring it up here and there, and she's like, "Oh, we're working on it." And I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen.
It's a lost cause at this point.
So I'm like, at this point, I feel like it's got to be some really great supporting role in a movie.
But she deserves a lead Oscar, Brian.
I should be lead.
It should be. It just goes hand in hand.
But yeah, so Susan Tyrrell for Fat City, I think it would have been hard to win for a movie. It's only the 1 nomination. I mean, I don't think Butterflies Are Free did that well, but I think we talked about it. I think it got like 5 nominations. One was strange. It was like cinematography or something.
What?
And it's based on a play, and they're like, most of the movies just in an apartment. And I'm like, how did that get a cinematography nod? Okay. But Fat City is just the 1. And that's whenever I'm predicting and I'm thinking, I'm like, if it's just got the 1 acting nom, it's going to be hard to get
Although I
through.
think it's easier in supporting if you're
Right.
that lone Oscar winner.
If
So
it's like a really just great
yeah,
performance.
if it's all about the performance, then yeah, it could be a
Yeah.
slam dunk, but not in this case.
But you know, and thinking back, I'm like, I'm kind of happy it was Susan Tyrrell. It wasn't like a Stacy Keach or Jeff Bridges. I think she does something so original in that small part.
Mm-hmm.
I like that
Yeah,
she got
totally
recognized.
Yeah, I would have liked like Stacy Keach, but I'm not like, I'm not upset he didn't get a nomination.
Yeah.
But Susan Tyrrell, I'm actually like really thrilled because I really liked her in Fat City.
Yeah, and just the fact that she had a long career going over many decades and having this one Oscar nomination probably helps, right? With her agents
Definitely.
and with getting roles, and for the rest of her career, for the next 40 years or whatever, she could say Oscar nominee. And that always does help. It helps like to get parts and things. So
definitely 100%.
So I like that one a lot. So my last question about the movie is, if it were made today, like if someone took this source material and made it in 2022, what do you think Fat City would look like? What would it look like today?
So I think there's two ways it could go.
Yeah.
It could be like a kind of studio film where it's like kind of like Rocky, where it's all about this. I think kind of like what you said before about this formulaic, like two boxers fighting against each other, in town and in the ring, that kind of feel.
Yeah.
And it would be very like loud, crazy, wild, like it's a studio film. And then you have the other way where it's like a smaller independent film, more focused on the two men and their lives, and boxing is kind of like the subject that they share.
Okay.
That's how I think if it was made today, it would go two different ways. And John Huston could direct both of them, but they'd be two different movies.
Yeah. I think that's probably where we would go today. I could not see this being a theatrical release. I think it would premiere on streaming. I don't know if there's any recognition of the title. So I don't know if this is one that would necessarily get a remake at some point, but
no, I don't think so.
But I mean, there's enough there. And I'm assuming the novel, even though it was written by the guy who wrote the novel, I'm assuming there were things that he might have had to leave out for the running time. Like maybe there could be other areas of the story that could be explored. I don't know. But I feel like if they were to make it today, they would probably go more formulaic, and that wouldn't be the route. Or they would try to make it like a 6-part miniseries or something, and that would be overkill.
No, I'm sorry. I'm over the limited series thing.
Where they take 2-hour stories and stretch them out to 8 hours.
No, thank you. Give me an hour 50. I'm fine.
I'm finally watching. I'm on summer break. I'm finally catching up on some things, and I'm watching the last 14 episode season of Ozark on Netflix.
Oh,
which is a great show. But
Laura Linney.
Every episode's like an hour and 2 minutes, hour and 4 minutes, and they just go on. And I'm like, I just like, sometimes I think they stretch these things out. And yes, I'm kind of like, okay, get me to the next Laura Linney scene. That's where my fascination is in the stories, more so than some of these other characters.
Yeah.
But I've never been one to think every story deserves an 8-part limited series.
I agree.
Some do, some make it work. Occasionally I'll watch something and say that would not have worked as a 2-hour movie. We needed that breadth of time. Yeah. It makes it better, but not all the time.
Not every time. That seems to be the trend.
Yeah. But so anyway, in summation of Fat City, I would give it like 2.5 stars out of 4, 6 out of 10. It was of interest, but it also, I mean, I have to be honest, it bored me at times. I wasn't like really invested to see what happens next. And
I was 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Yeah, it's kind of in that range. I am kind of surprised by all the accolades it got. Like 3.5, 4-star reviews. Like this is one of John Huston's best films. Like that to me is kind of crazy.
Interesting.
The guy who made Maltese Falcon and The African Queen and Treasure of Sierra Madre, one of his best films. Fat City. I don't know. That just seems a little bit. That seems
a little too much for me.
But if you're a fan of Jeff Bridges, Stacy Keach, if you're an Oscar completist like we are, you have to see it. So check it out.
Yeah, it's only 90 minutes. Bad.
No,
it's not bad.
It's okay.
Like you'll watch it and you'll say, okay, you'll see why Susan Tyrrell got an Oscar nomination. I could easily point out like the two scenes that like it would have been her clip.
Oh yeah. I'm always looking for the clip when I'm like, okay, Eileen Eckhart, okay, Susan Tyrrell, like, where's the clip? Oh, it's probably this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then sometimes they pick Oscar clips that are terrible, and you're like, why did they go with that one?
Such a waste. They don't get it. They need somebody like us to do it.
Like, speaking of Sandra Bullock and Gravity, the clip they showed at the Oscars was not one of her best moments in the movie, of her where she's just like screaming. I'm like, oh, I don't like. It's the part where she's crying and talking about how she's going to die. That's the clip. SAG got it right. SAG played that part.
SAG's clips are always usually better.
I'm like, come on, give me something better. But
they need to hire you, Brian.
That's what I'm gunning for here with Film at 50, with my Oscar channel. Like, hire me to pick the clips for the actors at the Oscar.
You work on the Academy. I'll work for TCM.
That'll be my full-time. Oh my gosh, I would love to work for TCM. I'm just so like, that channel just makes me so happy. Like, whenever I see it, I'm like, click.
My comfort zone.
It's the best. All right, so that takes us to the final two segments. The first one's the Divine Double Feature. When Fat City ends, what's a modern film you would pair it with? What could be your double feature with Fat City?
So I had a couple, and the one I would put it with is The Fighter.
Oh, okay.
I like The Fighter. It's one of my favorite films of the past, I guess, 10, 20 years. I guess it's 10 years old now.
Yeah.
I love this idea of the Mark Wahlberg and this kind of down and out. He's a down and out boxer trying to, make a comeback. And I like it. And I thought of this because it reminded me of the relationship that Mark Wahlberg has with his brother, Christian Bale.
Oh, right.
And it kind of reminds me of the relationship that Stacy Keach has, not only with Jeff Bridges, but also with Ruben, the coach.
Right.
And that they're trying to pull him up, get up in the ranks and succeed.
We're on totally the same wavelength here. Because we're very close. I love The Fighter. That's probably my favorite of David O. Russell's films. Like, if I had to pick one, like I like parts of Three Kings, Flirting with Disaster, Silver Linings Playbook, of course, is very interesting. But there's something about The Fighter.
Too.
Like, I think The Fighter is just a really great story. Amazing ensemble cast in that movie. It's just like on
amazing. And Christian Bale is probably one of my favorite supporting actor wins in that, probably in the past 20 years. I think he's excellent. Even Melissa Leo is great. She didn't even need to campaign. She could have won without the consider posters. But
well, you can skip my top 10 best acting Oscar wins of the 2010s video, because you won't be happy I don't talk about Christian Bale.
It's okay.
But he should have been there.
You have good taste too. So it's fine.
Those are really stressful I've done 3 of them now, for the 2010s, 2000s, and the 90s. I just did the 90s like 5 days ago of this recording.
Okay. I'll have to watch it.
It's kind of stressful, because I'm always like, I have to pick what I like, but I'm also thinking in the back of my mind, like, is this going to get me in trouble?
I always,
Are people going to scream
way
at me for this? But I think I did okay. So yeah, The Fighter's great. That was really weird how David O. Russell just comes on strong with that, Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, and Joy in 5 years.
Yeah.
And has he made a movie in the last 7 years?
I have no.
I don't think he's made.
I don't know. I know he was supposed to, right?
Same with Alejandro Inarritu, who won back-to-back Oscars for Birdman and The Revenant. And I had a guest recently say that he has shot a new film. But I'm always like, that's always strange to me when someone's really prolific for 5-10 years or whatever, and then all of a sudden 7 years go by and there's nothing. It's like, what are you doing?
Life got in the way.
But yeah, so The Fighter's a great choice. I only saw that the once, so that's been 12 years. I need to rewatch that.
Oh wow, definitely. Yeah. It's always on TV.
So my choice is also about boxing, also about two brothers, and it came out a year later, and it got an Oscar nomination. Any idea what I'm talking about?
Is it my second choice? Is it Warrior?
Warrior from 2011, which got an Oscar nomination for Nick Nolte, and it's Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy, right? Are the brothers in that movie?
Yes, that's right.
And another movie I just saw the once, but I like when I was thinking, like, what's a boxing movie the last 15 years?
Exactly.
And Warrior was the one that popped into my mind. I also thought Southpaw, which is solid with Jake Gyllenhaal from
Southpaw.
2015. But the better movie, I think, is Warrior. Yeah. Now, that movie is a little bit more formulaic. You got the big boxing match in the end, but I remember just being in tears when that movie ended. And I'm not one to cry at every ending of a movie, and that movie just really moved me. I have two brothers, and the brother's story in that film I thought was just very emotional. Definitely. And just in the last 20 minutes was just on another level, just so great. So yeah, I would pick Warrior from 2011. That's a good one.
You know what? I just thought of this like probably an hour ago, 2 hours ago. The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke.
Oh, right, The Wrestler. Mm-hmm.
Because the whole Stacy Keach storyline is similar to Mickey Rourke's.
Yeah, that's a good choice too.
And this kind of like want to get a comeback, you want to win.
The problem is, I feel like all of these movies are much better and more entertaining.
Better movies
than Fat City.
I know. Listen, start off with the lesser quality, and then go for the better one.
Like if you were to watch in the course of a week or two, The Wrestler and The Fighter and Warrior, and then put on Fat City, you'd be like,
oh, you'd be pissed. I'd start like, this isn't. City.
Yeah, but movies were different back then. You can't, as we talked about briefly, like you can't make a Fat City now. The way that movie was made then, it's like
no way.
Audiences would not stand for that. And it's my struggle every week with this podcast of like watching a movie made 50 years ago and trying to kind of find its rhythms that do not relate to the kind of films that we watch now.
But also sometimes finding a way to connect it to an audience now. Yeah. I think you do a great job of doing that.
Oh, thank you. I try. I really believe in lifting up a lot of these movies from 50 years ago that
I feel the same way.
Aren't talking about.
Yeah.
Like who else is talking about Fat City right now?
No. The Susan Tyrrell fan club.
Susan Tyrrell fan club. So that's what I'm here for. Film at 50. Not just talking Godfather and Cabaret. I also like to talk about under the radar movies that might not really get mentioned anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's worth an hour plus to talk about them again. Especially when they get an Oscar nomination. They've got Jeff Bridges.
There's a reason why somebody thought this movie was good. Somebody thought, like a majority of a certain amount of people thought Susan Tyrrell should have been winning an Oscar. So like obviously there's something in there that people should see.
Yeah. And even though they're 50 years old, for a lot of people, if you haven't seen the movie, it's new to you. So
exactly.
That's always my philosophy with a movie released at any time. It doesn't have to be a 2022 release. Like if I haven't seen it before, it's new to me. So here we go. New. All right. So our final segment is on Jeff Bridges, Mr. Jeff Bridges, who I looked at his IMDb yesterday and I think I wrote down 15 titles and I was like, which of these three do I like the best? So I think I like Jeff Bridges more than you do. Like I'm a big Jeff Bridges guy. I really love his work. I'm really excited to watch his new show, The Old Man on FX.
I heard about that.
Which he has not been in a film or a TV show in 4 years. He got cancer and COVID at the same time and almost died. And that's why we haven't seen him. That's why we haven't seen him since Bad Times at the El Royale in 2018. That was his last film role. Just a fun movie.
It is fun, yeah.
I watched an interview with him. He was promoting The Old Man. I think it was like CBS Sunday Morning or something. And he was talking about how it was kind of touch and go there for a few weeks because he had cancer and he was working on that. And then he gets, I'm like, geez, my God, I can't even imagine.
He's a fighter.
He is just, he's just a great guy. And he's just one of those actors that, I never got a chance. I never met him before, but he seems like the kind of guy who'd be, he would say something to you.
Yeah. He's like, he's so charismatic. And that's what I actually like about watching him is even in like some other stuff, you can sit back and relax.
Oh, absolutely.
And like, I feel like in real life, he's the kind of guy you'd like meet at a bar and just be like, just hang out.
Oh yeah. And like his dad comes from film, a famous actor. I think his mom was an actress too, was in films and
Brother Bo.
And then Brother Bo. And then just being able to see Jeff Bridges' career over the course of 5 decades now, going from Last Picture Show to his new show, The Old Man. We've gotten to see just some really creative choices on his part. He never went the
Yes.
easy direction. He would do studio movies. He would do action films. I like Blown Away.
And
You
like
know,
what longevity he has to be in this industry, and he
yeah,
still can make great performances and make good films.
yeah.
Everything is different.
Do you think his Oscar win should have been for Crazy Heart?
Uh,
It's the year of Sandra and The Blind Side,
I
man. It's
know.
like it was like career
it
awards
was
for
the
both
career.
of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think so, but I could see why he won.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of Sandra
And
Bullock's biggest fans. And I heard some Oscar buzz for The Blind Side. I go see it opening weekend. I walk out. I'm like, she's not going to get nominated for that.
oh my God,
And she
I went
wins.
that weekend too, and I was like, this is that kind of performance. I'm like, I was like, is she really gonna win? And then she started like winning all the critics awards, and I was like, holy cow.
It was absolutely a career win for both of them, I think. Yeah. He was good in Crazy Heart. I remember I saw it. I saw it at the Aero Theater in Santa Monica, and he was there for a Q&A after. It was a really cool night. So wait, I have seen him in person. I didn't say anything to him. But I have seen him in person. I forgot about that. that was for Crazy Heart. He was that was like during
the know about Crazy Heart.
That was during the award season, right? Where it's like every day they're expected to be at this screening and that screening. You would see them. That's when I met Sandra Bullock. She was getting an award in Santa Barbara for like a generation award or something. And I drove down to Santa Barbara and she was like doing a red carpet, and I talked to her for a moment. It was really cool.
I love that.
That's how you get close to
Sandra
the actors.
Bullock.
Yes. That's a good thing to say to me. I had a student say to me she hates Sandra Bullock a few weeks ago, and I was not a happy camper.
What?
I said that is the wrong thing to say to me.
Detention
for the rest of your life.
I just saw The Lost City. It's a cute film.
Oh my gosh, it was so cute. It was so funny and delightful, and
it reminded me of why I love Sandra Bullock.
And it was the kind,
a movie star.
It was the kind of movie that we don't really get anymore. Like this, it felt very like Romancing the Stone, kind of 80s escapist, PG-13,
and that's what I loved about it.
You know, and it just kind of worked. It was good chemistry with Channing Tatum. It's not a movie I'm gonna think about or I'm gonna revisit it that much, but it was like I was like, this is cool. Like that.
Brian, I watched it on
stage of her career.
It was a perfect plane movie.
Oh, that's a perfect plane movie. So Jeff Bridges, who appeared with Sandra Bullock in a film. Do you know the movie? Pop quiz. 1993, before Sandra became famous, she played a small part in a thriller starring Kiefer Sutherland and Nancy Travis. And Jeff Bridges plays the villain. It's called The Vanishing from 1993.
Wow.
And Jeff Bridges kills Sandra Bullock in an early scene of the movie.
Get out of here.
Well, not kill her. He chloroforms her in a car.
Oh,
and then he kills her off screen.
Yeah.
But so that's their connection. But in 50 years of films, like if you had to take 2 or 3 to a desert island, Jeff Bridges films, like which ones would you choose? If you had to pick 2 or 3.
So I actually the one I definitely take, well, the first 2 I definitely take, Last Picture Show and Big Lebowski. I just love Last Picture Show, so and I love his performance in it. So I definitely like it. I watched it also when I was like in college. I was like, oh my God, this movie speaks to me. But and his performance was just incredible in that. And then the Big Lebowski, he's how can you not? That's like it's his signature role.
It's his signature role.
He will be remembered in years to come because of the dude.
That movie is so interesting because I feel like when it came out, it kind of came and went. Like it wasn't a big hit. It came out, I believe, in March of '98. I that was a point. I was in middle school at that point, and I was seeing everything, and I saw it, and I liked it. And the next week, I was on to the next movie. I wasn't really thinking about Big Lebowski as like one of the great films of '98, but it was one of those that just it found its audience on home video and on television, and it just blew up like no one's business. And it is his signature part. Like he'll always be most remembered known for that one.
For that.
And he's so great in it too.
Yeah.
Did he get any major nominations for? I don't think he did. Like I don't think maybe like a comedy award or something, but he didn't get like an Oscar nomination.
No, he didn't. But maybe was there a Globe nomination? Maybe.
I don't think so. I can
probably not, right? Because you said it came and went, right?
It was So the movie that the Coen brothers made before The Big Lebowski was Fargo, which was like their big, massive,
incredible,
breakthrough. And then that won them the Oscar. Frances McDormand won the Oscar.
Yeah, that's right.
And they could have made anything they wanted, and they make The Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski.
You know, it wasn't the movie that everyone expected them to make.
Yeah, now it's this like cult classic.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
So let's see. I just pulled up the Big Lebowski awards. So let's see. So Awards Circuit Community Awards gave
there you go.
John Goodman won. That's awesome. I love John Goodman. Let's see. Anything else? He was a nominee at the Russian Guild of Film Critics. He was a nominee at the Satellite Awards. Do we know anything about the Satellite Awards? That's on like every
the satellites. I've heard of them. They're like a wannabe Golden Globes.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
But,
I just started listening to. Have you listened to the podcast? This had Oscar buzz.
I've heard a couple of episodes. It's great. It's
like
they're so intelligent. I love the two of them.
I just like one day I was like, I'm kind of in the mood for an Oscar podcast when I haven't listened to before. And it kept showing up and it, like on Twitter and stuff. And I'm like, let me give it a listen. And I just scroll. I'm a big Meryl Streep fan. They did an episode on the River Wild. So I'm like, oh, listen to this.
Did they really? Oh my God.
And it was so informative and they've got great banter.
They're great.
So I went all the way back to their first episode in 2018, and I'm just slowly listening to all of them because it's amazing.
Oh my God.
That's my promotion today for this had Oscar buzz. It's so good. Yeah, I love that podcast.
Joe Reed, right? Joe Reed.
Oh yeah. They're amazing.
He's excellent.
And just like and kind of like what I do here and like bringing up titles of movies, mostly more recent. Like they usually talk about films of the last like 20 years.
They do a lot more,
But they talk about movies that they were thinking might get some Oscar buzz, might get some nominations, and then I think their rule is it can't be nominated for anything. Like it can't get one. And then they're allowed to talk about it. And it's kind of like what I do here in oftentimes bringing up titles that people aren't talking about as much these days. And I think it's worth doing. To talk about
definitely.
And to talk about why a movie succeeded or failed is worth doing. So, All right. Any others? Last Picture Show and Big Lebowski. Those are also on my list.
Let me. I always get him confused. Jeff Bridges is in The Mirror Has Two Faces, right?
He is. He's the male lead.
Nick Nolte is the Prince of Tides, right?
Nick Nolte is the Prince of Tides.
Okay.
Jeff Bridges is The Mirror Has Two Faces.
I always switch them up, but I mean, he's got some great ones. And Tron. Contender is a good one, and I also put The Fabulous Baker Boys, but I think that's mostly because of Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes, yeah, that's more of like a movie I love because of her more so than him. But yeah, I mean, I have Cutter's Way. It's a great early 80s indie he's in. Tron, Starman, Jagged Edge with Glenn Close. Great legal thriller, Jagged Edge, which I really enjoy. The Fisher King with Robin Williams. Is a great movie.
Mercedes Rule won the Oscar.
Mercedes Rule. Fearless by Peter Weir. Rosie Perez got close, I think, to winning the Oscar.
She got close, yeah.
Lost to Anna Paquin.
And Peter Weir's getting an honory Oscar.
Yes, they just announced Peter Weir is finally getting an Oscar. I'm very, very happy about that.
Great.
And Diane Warren.
Yes, I know. She's the real reason to watch.
Which I've had people reach out, but like, you need to do an elusive Oscar video about Diane Warren.
Oh my God,
nominations. That would be an hour and a half.
Yeah. I know. You're on summer break. You have time.
Summer break. No, I have promised the world I am going to do a Glenn Close elusive Oscar.
That's right.
I'm very nervous because my Jake Gyllenhaal video, which he was nominated for one was 30 minutes long. So I'm a little nervous about Glenn Close. I'm like, I want to do it justice. I can't just kind of like talk about each of the 8 nominations in a minute each. Like that's not going to feel right. But you can
take a while. Do you know Fritz? Fritz, who does the YouTube videos? He's great. He does YouTube videos on Oscars, and his are like 2.5 hours long.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yes, but Fritz is good. He goes very into detail. He's also a really nice guy. We're friends on Twitter.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely check him out. Work. Yeah,
like Be Kind Rewind. Izzy does some that are close to an hour.
She does. Yeah.
she did one about Feud, about Betty
Joan
Davis and Joan Crawford. I think that one was like 55 minutes, and it was just so.
And it was part 1 and part 2, right?
Oh, that's right. It was like 2 parts.
Yeah. So you can do it. You can do it.
I mean, I was like, the Jake Gyllenhaal one just about killed me. So I'm like, this is gonna be an adventure, but we're doing it. We'll get to it.
Good.
Okay, so my choices were The Last Picture Show, The Big Lebowski. And if I had to pick a third one, it's kind of hard. I think I would pick Hell or High Water.
I was just thinking that.
That was one of my 10 favorites of 2016. Jeff Bridges was so great in that. Chris Pine. Yeah, Chris Pine. And who was the other guy? Ben. I'm like blanking on his name. The actor I love, Ben Foster, who I also thought should have been nominated that year for an Oscar. He's a great actor. I love him. So great. Leave No Trace, right? He's the lead of that movie, and he's just great. And I feel like it might be close, but I think I would go with my third choice being Hell or High Water. I really got a lot out of that movie.
I think I'm there with you.
I love the texture of it and the look and the performances and the surprises and the narrative. It was just really great.
Now, let me ask you, would you give him the Oscar for Crazy Heart?
No, I would have given it to Colin Firth for A Single Man.
And Single Man?
That was my favorite film of 2009. I thought Colin Firth was amazing in that.
Beautiful film.
I liked King's Speech fine, but I looked at that win as a win for A Single Man.
I agree.
Which happens.
Agreed. It happens.
I love that, and I say this a lot about actors who won for the wrong role. Like, I love that they have one.
I agree, 100%. 100%.
So we're good.
It happens more often than not.
Like Paul Newman won for The Color of Money. Okay.
Renee Zellweger,
happy he got one. Oh gosh, I'm making my video right now about the 2004 Oscars of the 03 movies.
Oh my God.
And the only race I could talk about was Bill Murray versus Sean Penn. That was it.
Yeah.
Because every other race was a lock. I was like, could I do Sheree Agdashlu versus Renee Zellweger? And then I was like, did Agdashlu win one of the biggies? She won Film Independent Spirit Awards, where Zellweger wasn't nominated. I'm like, that's it. No, they got to win one big one. And Bill Murray won Golden Globe Musical or Comedy, and he won the BAFTA.
Yes, that's right.
Actor. So, and then Johnny Depp won SAG.
That's right. Johnny Depp won SAG. That's right.
So I thought about calling the video like Murray versus Penn versus Depp, but I'm like, Johnny Depp was never going to win the Oscar.
No,
that was never going to.
It's fascinating that he won SAG, though. I find that,
and he wasn't there. He wasn't there. I found the whole show.
Footage.
I have the footage of SAG, and he's not there to accept. I'm like, that would have been a great moment, a great speech.
Yeah.
If he had been there and delivered some just like rock solid speech, maybe. Julie Andrews won for Mary Poppins. It's possible.
That's right. It's possible.
But so that was the only race. So when you mentioned Zellweger for Cold Mountain, I'm not.
That's right.
I'm not a Cold Mountain guy.
Listen, I'm not a Cold Mountain guy either.
I was.
No, thank you. Give me a beach.
I would have given it to pretty much anyone else in that category.
Yeah, and that's a good lineup too.
Agdashlu, I just thought was amazing in House of Sand and Fog. That would have been my choice, but that's a conversation for another day.
For another time.
The last titles I want to mention. Arlington Road is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, he's the lead. Tim Robbins is the villain. Joan Cusack is in it. The ending is a shocker, and it kind of came and went in the summer of '99. When we talk about movies from 1999, Arlington Road is not one of them, but I really like it. I thought it was undeservedly kind of pushed aside by critics and audiences. I thought it was pretty good. He's great in The Contender, Oscar nomination. Seabiscuit, I love his performance in The Door and the Floor, which was the last episode I listened to from this at Oscar Buzz podcast.
Wow.
They talked about The Door and the Floor, also with Kim Basinger. And we have to mention True Grit from 2010. Oscar nomination, fantastic. A role that John Wayne won his Oscar for in 1970. And then Jeff Bridges got nominated for the role for the remake by the Coen brothers, who worked with the Coen brothers again. And Sandra Bullock turned to him from the stage, who was presenting Best Actor that year. And she said, you just won this award last year. How much is enough? Which I always love.
She was right.
It happens here and there, right? It's got to be weird when you win and then you're nominated in the same category the next year, right?
I'm trying to think of recent ones.
Eddie Redmayne for The Danish Girl.
Penelope Cruz.
Yeah,
Vernon.
Like that's always weird to me. Oh, the other big one, the one I really hate is Sam Rockwell wins for 3 Billboards, and then he's nominated for Vice.
Vice, which I didn't like, but that's neither here nor there.
Which Vice I liked more than others, but I thought his performance as George W. Bush
nomination
was okay. I didn't think that was worthy of a nomination.
And I think that's probably why he got the nomination, because he was the previous winner.
And I'm blanking. It was Timothy Chalamet for Beautiful Boy, which I thought was a wonderful performance in that. And then they gave it to Sam Rockwell. I don't know. Yeah. But I do love that Jeff Bridges has 7 nominations. He's one of our great actors.
Me too. Totally deserving.
Working for 50 years. I love that he's had a nomination every decade. The 70s, the 80s.
80s.
Wait, not the 90s.
Not
if you count The Contender as 2000. So it's
2000.
Should have been nominated for Fearless. I love him in Fearless.
Yes.
But
it's funny. I was watching he received the Cecil B. DeMille Award in 2019.
Okay.
So it was nice just watching his speech too. And it was like, you really think about like, wow, he's really been such a part of our American like pop culture for so long. And I wouldn't think about awarding him until he's there. I'm like, oh my God, he's a perfect choice for like an honorary award.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think, does it get tricky if they won an Oscar, say, like to give them also an honorary Oscar? I mean, it happens, but there's not as much.
Nowadays, they don't do that.
Yeah, there's not as much desire.
Did it so much in like years ago, I noticed. And nowadays, it seems like it's like this sounds bad, like a makeup.
Yeah.
Like it's like, hey, you were nominated 4 times. Here's an honorary Oscar. Whereas like, I feel like they should, if somebody like a Frances McDormand, who's won 3 Oscars, gets to receive an honorary Oscar, I'd be totally okay with it because she's so deserving of it. I don't know if she'd come and like give a speech, but yeah.
Frances McDormand getting another Oscar.
Yeah.
Let's give her one every year.
Yeah.
She's great. I love her.
Or Meryl Streep even. I mean,
Meryl Streep. And now I'm just an honorary Oscar to Meryl. Meryl Streep. So I'm starting a new YouTube series. I'm going to look at each of her like races.
Oh, I'm already subscribed to your channel, but you like notifications on for that. I love.
I did a poll. I did a poll a few nights ago. I'm like, would you guys be interested in this? It was like 90%.
Yes.
I was like, okay.
Yes.
And I'm a huge fan of hers. But did you know like the longest stretch of time between nominations since the 70s for Meryl Streep is 5 years, between 1990 Postcards from the Edge, 1995 The Bridge of Madison County. Her last nomination.
I didn't realize it.
Her last nomination was for 2017's The Post.
So
we're at 5 years, and weirdly, she has no projects in production right now. Her last film that she made was at the end of 2020. She shot Don't Look Up.
Oh, Don't Look Up. That's right.
She shot Don't Look Up in the fall of 2020, the height of COVID.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, Meryl, it's June of 22. What's going on?
Your birthday just happened.
Just turned 73. I'm like,
I didn't even realize that.
So unless she has a surprise movie that starts shooting tomorrow, she's not going to have a film in 2022. And that record will be broken. Like it'll be more than 5, which is so oddly very sad to me.
It's upsetting. Very upsetting.
Like when she got nominated for Florence Foster Jenkins and The Post, I'm like, she is just going to get nominated every other year till the end of time. And it's like, it's almost like
too soon.
Kind of like gone away a little bit. I'm curious what she's up to, but because I really hope we got at least 15 more years of great roles.
Oh my God, I want more. I love her.
She's at 21 nominations. I really
want her to 25.
I want her to get to 25.
Want her to get to 25.
Like 25 would be perfect. 25.
It's doable.
I think she's got it. I think she can do it.
She can
do it. So yeah, I'm going to start.
If anybody can, she will.
but I'm going to start doing a series. I mean, we'll see. I'm going to do one.
Can't wait.
And this is how I've got like 8 different series on my YouTube channel at this point. Like I do 2 of everything that I'm thinking about, and then I see how it does.
Assess,
if there's not, like I did 2 called Oscar Shockers, and neither one has done well. So I'm like, okay, well maybe I'm not going to do another one.
Interesting.
So I'm going to do the first 2. I'm going to do Deer Hunter. I'm going to do Kramer versus Kramer, which he won for.
Beautiful.
And then we'll see. I haven't done a video, I think, on anything from the 70s yet. So I'm excited. Maybe like one at the very beginning I did. So it'd be fun to talk about Oscar history of the late 70s. I haven't really touched on that.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait, Brian.
So anyway, Matt, this has been such a treat to talk Jeff Bridges and Fat City today. As we wrap up here, tell our listeners where they can find you online and anything you'd like to promote. Now's the time.
Great. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Matt. I'm the host of Real Gold Rundown on Instagram and TikTok. And we talk about mostly like old Hollywood and classic films, celebrating artists and films and why people should acknowledge these actors, creators, and films. So you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Real, REEL Gold Rundown. And I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at Matt Duffy 33.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So thanks for being here, Matt. Thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us online.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And check out my YouTube channel, Brian Rowe Video. If you like Oscar history, you'll have a good time. I'm over 50 videos now, so check it out.
Woo-hoo!
And I know it's not Oscar season right now, but you can enjoy Oscar season at Brian Rowe Video with all kinds of videos. Absolutely. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.